there's apparently some talk about a fight between Daniel Dubois and Dillian Whyte. Now, Frank Smith said that this is a possibility, but also Derek Chisora. Now, Chisora, I've found, has been pretty accurate in terms of fights that are going to happen and fights that are not going to happen in the heavyweight division. If you cast your minds back, what was it, a year, when there was talks between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury for their fight, and it all fell through in the end, but it looked very, very close at one stage. Derek Chisora maintained the entire time that the fight wasn't going to happen and that the Deontay Wilder fight would happen instead, because Deontay Wilder had this, contract that was ironclad. And when all the other parties were saying something else, they were saying it was going to happen, Derek Chisora maintained all along the fight's not going to happen. And he was right. And in this instance here, he says that not only is Dillian Whyte going to fight Daniel Dubois, but also, and more concerningly, he said that Tyson Fury is going to fight Deontay Wilder for a fourth time. And when the IFL interviewer questioned him on it, he said it's because Wilder's going to fight Robert Helenius, and that's going to be a WBC eliminator. And therefore, the winner of it will be mandatory for Fury. Well, the WBC don't normally expedite mandatories that quick. It's normally quite a while between usually a lot of time between one mandatory and the next. But in the case of Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, who knows? Maybe Derek Chisora is right. I hope he's wrong in this particular case, but let's see. But as far as Dillian Whyte and Daniel Dubois, I think that's a fight that makes sense for both of them. Because for Daniel Dubois, he gets to raise his profile by fighting a Dillian Whyte. He gets to, if he wins, have the most credible name on his resume to date. Somebody who's been in there with Tyson Fury, with Anthony Joshua, Derek Chisora, of course, several times, Oscar Rivas, Joseph Parker, lots of different names. Be a big win for Daniel Dubois. Now, I think that Dillian Whyte has faded massively in terms of his punch resistance. So we can't really give Daniel Dubois as much credit for beating Whyte as we would have had to have given Povetkin, Tyson Fury, and so on. I think the more knockout defeats, particularly knockout defeats, that Whyte suffers, the less credit you give the person who knocked him out, if that makes sense. So, and again, I'm not saying that Daniel Dubois definitely would knock Dillian Whyte out, but if he did, we would have to consider the fact that Whyte has been knocked out several times in his past few fights. Now, for Dillian Whyte, it also makes sense because if not for this WBA regular belt that Daniel Dubois has, is there going to be any other opportunity for Dillian Whyte to fight for a world title in the foreseeable future? And if he is as shop-worn as I'm suggesting at this point, then he may never get another opportunity to fight for any kind of world title. Therefore, if he has any ambition, he pretty much has to take the Daniel Dubois fight if it's there for him. He's in there against a young guy, a strong guy, a guy who can hit really hard, yes, but a guy who's also a little slow at times, a little cumbersome, a little stiff, and young and inexperienced still. Maybe Dillian Whyte will feel like he has some tricks up his sleeve for Daniel Dubois. And of course, Dillian Whyte still has that tremendous left hook. What would happen if Daniel Dubois gets clocked with that? It might be a situation where it's who lands first. And Dubois surely isn't going to be as effective at staying away from Dillian Whyte's punches as Tyson Fury was, at least not if the fight goes, 7 rounds. You would imagine that eventually Dillian Whyte is going to land something. So it's going to be a matter, as I said, of who lands first. If Daniel Dubois manages to land first early, then perhaps he puts Dillian Whyte away long before 7 rounds have elapsed. But anyway, bottom line is, I think it's a good fight for both of them, a fight that makes sense for both of them. And even though the Derek Chisora fight, in terms of Dillian Whyte's chances of winning and in terms of matching him up against someone who's at a similar stage of their career. The Chisora fight makes more sense in that aspect, but Whyte still seems to be ambitious. So rather than just having decided with Derek Chisora, which he probably still has a decent chance of winning because Chisora's punch resistance is not what it used to be as well. It might not be as diminished as Dillian Whyte's, although it's arguable, but it's still diminished. So him against Chisora, in my head, is a more, how can I describe it? I don't want to say it's not risky because it's still risky for Dillian Whyte, but I don't think it's as risky. I don't think he is in as much danger against Derek Chisora as he would be against Daniel Dubois physically. But I would understand completely why he would rather go the Dubois route because there's more in it. Yeah, and I still think that it's as dangerous as it is, it's a more winnable fight than Tyson Fury would be. Or Tyson, evidently Fury stopped him in 7. Or was it 6? Six or 7 rounds he stopped him. I think it was 6, wasn't it? So I think this is a more winnable fight than that. But I will probably still have Daniel Dubois as the favorite at this stage. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below. Do you like Dillian Whyte versus Daniel Dubois? Do you understand why Dillian Whyte would take the fight and why Dubois would take it? And who would you have winning?